What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Andy and I have a massive problem. If you follow along, you know this old girl behind us here is Margaret, and she's one of the most important projects of the channel. But just look at those weeds. I mean, she is getting lost in the weeds, and that is a massive problem. So we need to take a break from all the other projects and things that we got going on and try to focus on this old girl here. Step one, let's get it out of the weeds so we can actually work on it. Conveniently, it's raining today, but we can't wait for perfect conditions for everything. We're gonna work on this old girl. Just hook the battery up. Let's see if we can't peel her out of this old spot. I haven't started the engine or moved the truck since it was in this position, and that happened shortly after the last video. Stick with us, I'll show you what we're gonna get into. Gotta love the rain. I mean, it's a perfect day to not be a shade tree mechanic. I wish this thing would fit in the shop, but with everything else going on in there, there's no way it's gonna go in. Let's see if we can't get her moved out of that spot. What we're gonna try to do is move her out of that spot, move all this steel that we cut off of it over there out of the way, and then bring her back in so the cab's closer to the garage so we don't have to walk as far in the rain, and maybe we can stay a little bit more dry. Here we go. I hope she starts. Go away, mice! Well, that didn't really go as planned. I think I choked when I shouldn't have choked, and the battery in there is a little low. So we got two old Optimas jumpered together. As long as she doesn't short out, this should work. See what she's gonna do. Come on, old girl. Doesn't seem to be working. Well, time out to charge batteries and give the starter a break. Got the batteries out of there. The starter is a little bit warmer than I'd like, so we did crank on it for quite a bit. My fault. Yeah. Wrong settings on trying to start it. The battery was a little low. She wasn't cranking as fast as she should. May have flooded her out a little bit, and then just here we are. So the batteries are on the charger. I'm going to, while we're waiting on the starter to cool off, I'm going to go ahead and clean the points just in case there is a little bit of a weak spark. You know, I think I cranked on that more than what I did when I first brought this thing home. So something definitely not right. Could just be my poor starting settings, just flooded her out right from the get-go. But we're gonna go ahead and clean these points while we're waiting on the starter to cool off. Luckily they're closed right now, so it'll already pinch the, I can get my hands in there, it'll already pinch the sandpaper, and I'll just put it in there and drag it out. Do that a couple times. Sand too much off, you'll have to readjust the point gap when it opens. I don't think we did that. At least we're going to try it the way it is. And we'll slam this back together and hope we get spark. These clips are like the best thing ever for these caps. Genius. I'm messing with screws. Alright, should be good to go. Patience isn't really one of my strong points. We got a different old, new, good battery in there. And we're going to try to fire up with those clean points. I hope water's not getting in the fuel. This gas tank needs definitely an improvement. But what we're going to try to work on today is related directly to the battery. The charging system, ever since we first obtained this truck and started it up, did not work. If you remember, you watched the previous videos way back in the beginning, the alternator was just blowing smoke. So I imagine the alternator is probably cooked. So we can't really charge this thing. We can't really drive it either. We're left to just relying on the charge that's in the battery, and that's as far as we can go when it's dead. So need to address that alternator in the charging circuit. Depending on how much time we have, we also need to look at this old gas tank. This little auxiliary tank works good for driving it in the driveway, but you can't really go far on a gallon of gas. We've never popped the top on that old original gas tank either, so that's a little scary. We'll have to see what's in there. Fingers crossed. Let's hope this baby fires up so we can get to work. Not looking good. That battery's got a lower charge than the last two. Ugh. Oh boy. Something about having old batteries as backups. They're never any good, but you still keep them. I have not given up just yet. This is going to be battery number 4. Probably dead just like the other ones. Well, I'm on battery number 4 here. These are all old spare batteries, not on the charger, so they're all probably low. This one sounds like it's chugging away the fuel pump pretty good. There's a little bit of hope. Let's see what she's gonna do. Not looking good. Ugh. Okay, this is my last attempt. If this doesn't work, we're gonna have to give up until the batteries are all charged and let old Margaret sit for a little bit. This is the big monster battery from Big MFer, the little diesel. So we're gonna hook this bad boy up to the battery that's in there because it's too big to fit in there with some jumper cables and let her rip. If this doesn't work, I'm gonna give up for the time being, and it wasn't for lack of persistence. Nothing doing. What a ride this has been. Nothing seems to be working. I got questionable batteries everywhere. Tried several different ones. Put them on the chargers. I really don't know. I think the starter might be smoked. And here, I said it before, but I'm saying it this time 100% sure. This is the last attempt. We're getting really crazy with it. I have solid battery cables straight to the old flat Thunder truck here. It's on the secondary, well, that's actually the main battery. It's tied in directly to the main battery, goes to the starter solenoid, and then the ground goes directly to the starter. That ground wire on the starter, the cable that latches it to the frame, is a little questionable, so hopefully this wire straight from the main battery source to the starter, this is going to give us the full shot. This is going to give us all the juice. We still have the battery in the truck, which is one of the old truck batteries. We got 2 batteries in the flatbed here, and if this doesn't spin it over faster than what it's been spinning over, something is 100% wrong, and we're just taking that starter out of there. Let's fire up, see what's going to happen. That's it. I think the starter is definitely bad and or needs rebuilt. Did we screw it up in the making of this? I don't know. Next step, get it ripped out of there, get all this garbage out of the way, see if we can't get a new one. Here we go. Well, there's some irony. We spent this whole time partially trying to get this old girl running so we can move it closer to the garage so we can work in a spot, not so much in the rain. Gave us some issues, rained on us the entire time, and once we gave up, the rain stopped. So yeah, what we were originally going to work on was the charging circuit and the alternator, which I need it running, and I need to be able to start it to test the charging circuit. The alternator was smoking, and what I was going to do is just hook her back up and see, okay, was Was there any odd chance that that's actually going to charge? I highly doubt it, but that was going to be the original approach. Now we switched over to the starting issue. The starter itself basically needs rebuilt, and we need to come up with all brand new cables. We directly hooked it up to the flatbed, the flat.thunder truck there, and that was a main feed right to the starter solenoid with the ground, which we still have attached right on the edge of the starter, and the performance was not any better. So something's going on with that. We're gonna rip that starter out of there and see if we can't get a replacement and or get it rebuilt. Good news, it's relatively easily accessible. Here's the starter solenoid. This is the main wire to the battery right there. We connected our battery from the flat.thunder truck here for the main feed power, just in case this cable was bad. I did remove this cable, the feed to the starter, from the starter, which is down right there. Right about there she is, right behind the spark plug wire. So I took that off, cleaned it up real good, and tested the resistance on that wire from there to there, and it was really good. Now that's not saying it doesn't short out under load, but I feel as if that wire is good. And then the ground wire is down here. This is the ground strap. I don't know how well you can see it from there, but the insulation is flaking off of it, and we got some of the nasty green corrosion in there, so that may be part of our problem. We did connect the auxiliary ground wire. This is it right here, right there, back to the battery, so that should have ruled this out. Let's get that starter off of there. I think he's ready to come out of there. Maybe. Oh, that's interesting. Oh. Would you look at that? I personally have never seen a Bendix like this. It's pretty crazy looking. It almost looks like this maybe is a bearing. I'll put it down and give you a closer look, but I've never worked on a starter like this before. This appears to be some type of gasket-ish thing, but this part, I mean, I have never seen. It's got like a ratchet here, so it can, if it starts, it's got a ratchet right there, so if it like starts back dragging, it'll pop out, and then I assume that's the start position. Not working. This housing's all crusted up. Take 4005. Let's see. So it looks like she's going counterclockwise. And when she goes counterclockwise, she spins in. I feel like this is crusted up. Let's clean this and see if we can't free this up a little bit. You guys are not going to believe this, but I am not an expert on electrical motors. This is the first time I ever took a starter apart of this style. I've never seen a Bendix like that. It has this ratcheting mechanism in here, and it wants to spin counterclockwise, and I believe dial in. Things that I did notice, this looks like it's like an outboard bearing, and it spins really poorly. It does look like They don't have a dial indicator on it, but oh man, I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 16th or more. So if there's a bearing right in there, that thing is shot. The teeth kind of look like they're chewed up a little bit, unless that's the profile. I almost kind of think this thing is stuck, and it's supposed to. I almost think this thing's kind of stuck, and it was driving all the time with the engine, maybe wearing out this bearing. But I kind of feel like this thing's supposed to be back here, and then when you engage the starter, it's supposed to spool in. But it looks like it's pretty much in all the time, or at least really close to being in. Maybe that's why the teeth are rounded. Let's start working on this, see if we can figure out how this comes apart, and see if we can't free this up and make it move a little bit better, because something's definitely not right here. And while we're at it, we'll see if we can get at this bearing. Thought I could force this to drive up, but as I tried to do so, it just ratchets on the ratchet. Can you see it and hear it? Just ratchets right there. When you try to go the other way, that's the driveway, it takes this and shoves it into this housing. I believe that's just a spring pack inside there. Well, so far I've effectively shown my knowledge of these. I have no idea how this works, but it does appear like when this dials in, it pushes on this mechanism and shoves this back into this cage, which I believe is a spring pack to help force it in. There goes a piece of crap. Now I'm just going to scrape all the smew and goo off of this thing and see if we can figure out how we can get into that bearing there. I'm guessing this band clamp just comes off and the whole thing comes apart, but let's get all this garbage off of here and start tearing her open. And it's definitely no good the way it is, so if it all goes south, we need a new one. But as it is right now, we need a new one. So get in there, see what we can find. Alright, just made a big pile of rags over there using Simple Green WD-40. Got a whole bunch of the crap scraped off of it. Now we can actually get in here and work on it a little bit without worrying about all the garbage that's going to fall off of it or go into it. That's tight. I'm just hoping this doesn't go south really fast. It's like the aluminum end wants to come off. Uh-oh. Don't want to forget that. So it appears that all the brushes are on the other end, and when you take the shaft out, they fall in where they it's going to be hard to get those back into the shaft. So I had to take this cover off, and it looks like you can kind of lift them out through these access holes here, but it's still going to be kind of tricky. Well, I know for a fact there's a pin right there. If you squeeze this down, you should be able to get the pin out. But right now, I'm not seeing how to get that movement out of it. Sometimes you find yourself doing questionable things. I know this probably looks completely ridiculous, but this spiral, this Bendix goes up and down on the spiral. It's supposed to have a good amount of movement. Now what I'm trying to do here is work it so it goes back more, hoping that that'll give us some room here to get this pin out. It definitely moved back in more just by working it. Sometimes in life you got to get creative and use the things that you have to work with. Unfortunately, Andy does not have an arbor press, but I do have a lathe with a tailstock. This actually worked out way more convenient than I thought. Now I do not have a bearing chuck that I can clamp on the end of the shaft down here, which would be ideal. So right now it's just sitting inside the clearance of the tailstock, so it's captured in there, but it's not necessarily supported on center. And then I have it lightly clamped down here. I'll take you off there and show you. And I'm basically cranking and spinning this assembly around the shaft because there's corrosion and buildup over the years that's keeping that from wanting it to go that way. Right there's our pinhole. Ooh, it's out, but it's a long shot back there somewhere. Couple of chips. Come out harder than just falling out, that's for sure. There is one heck of a spring load on that. Now the trick is trying not to lose anything as this comes off of there. Try to disassemble this inside the magnetic tray. I tend to lose things a lot. So this should just slide right off the end. Should. I'm kind of surprised that stayed together, but I'm not questioning it. All the wear is on that side, the side that probably pushes against the crank. You see some wear marks where the actual motor shaft and assembly was rubbing, and it should never rub this area, and that definitely hurts the performance of the motor. Back at the lathe again, we have the gosh, I want to call it the rotor assembly. I could be completely wrong on that. I'm not an electrical motor guy. I don't even know what I'm doing, to be honest with you. But I have it chucked up in here. I'm going to throw a really small center in the end so we can use the lathe to polish this and polish up the contact points here for our brushes and get those all cleaned up. I'm far from an expert, but this looks way better than what it did when we started. We got the corrosion polished off of the shaft here. This main steel portion that gets magnetized had some gouges in it from the bushing being worn out, and bits and pieces of stuff dragging through the inside of the motor. And then we got the contact surface back here all polished up on this face and this face, relatively good. So we're going to call that good on this and try to slam this back together. I don't know if you can see that or not. Far from perfect. Way better than it was. This is the Bendix, all disassembled. This part goes inside this guy. And this is the part we were trying to get to move previously. And it would not do that. It would always hang up, and that was it. You couldn't get it to go all the way to the end. Circle clip here, which is a real pain to get out. Took a pair of vice grips, clamped it on this end, and then worked it out with a pick all the way around. Wave spring washer, then a flat washer. And then this guy will come off of this helical machine groove kind of thread profile. And then that piece will also come off. It's just a hub sticking up, which this spring is on. But as this guy comes off, you see these pressed in pins here. There's one, two. There are little, like, almost like ball detent shaped pieces inside that have springs behind them, and they will come launching out. Pops in a detent down here and then rotates all the way up. It never did this before. We were fighting with it. So I think what's happening is one of these pieces were out of position or half falling out of the bore and not aligned properly, or there was just some massive junk in there. Put a little white lithium lube on this guy. Tried to work it into the gaps in the shaft on the top, in between there. And obviously got it on the scroll here, and this thing is just moving like butter. Working really nice. That's what it's supposed to do. Now I just need to get this guy back on here. I just have a spring clip here that we need to pop back in this top edge without grenading it across the shop. Yeah, that makes me super happy. I mean, it didn't do that at all before. You saw me pounding on it, and I couldn't get it to rotate all the way down. We come about there and stop. I think we're on the right direction here. But if you look close, the wall thickness is a little bit thinner over there. So here's the best visual. This to turn into one of these. Need a bushing? Make a bushing. Back at the Precision Arbor Press. That worked, but I really need to invest in a nice arbor press. We're at the point where we're ready to clean it up and put it back together. I didn't show it because it was really hard to do and all you see is my hands, but these are the brushes. We got them removed out of the little housings that are inside there. Oh, there you go. Didn't plan on that happening. So there's the housings. They slide in these little spring jobby-doos, push on the ends. So I really don't know what kind of grease to put down in here. This is dielectric grease. I'm assuming, and I'm just putting this on here for this bushing that's down here. I'm assuming that will lubricate that bushing and not short anything out while it's in there. Could be wrong. Someone's going to tell me I'm wrong, I'm sure. I just don't know what the correct answer is there. Would have been smart to mark this. Didn't do it. I think it's got a groove right there. Got all the brushes back in. It was a little bit difficult because they kept rocking. I'm sure I have the wrong technique. First time I ever worked on an old starter like this. Got the cover pop, well, cleaned it all out, got the cover pop back on, and then got the end cap on with the new bushing. And she just spins so much better than she did previously and does not have all that loosey-goosiness all over. So now we're at the point where I believe we just need to get the Bendix reinstalled, and this is ready to go back on good old Margaret. Custom ground drift punch that would fit in there. Worked a punch in there, small one, broke it off. Got the custom punch in there. Now this side's down, looks to be low enough, but this side here is still up proud. I just don't know. Oh, I think it started. Let's go in, go in. Casualty of war right there. Ha ha! Look at that. So we got the starter all back together. I just got my angle die grinder with my twist lock Scotch-Brite pad and polished up the mounting surfaces and all the mounting tabs. That way we get a really good connection between this, the block, and the ground strap. I also got in there and buzzed the ground strap eyelet with this guy, cleaned it all up real nice and shiny. We're gonna bolt this thing all back in there and see if we get any better performance out of it. I'm hoping that that really does the trick, but I'm a little bit sketchy on this. I know it wasn't right before. It's nice and smooth now, but almost feels like it's missing a spring of some sort. We're gonna put it in there and see what she does. She is in there. The tricky part is that top bolt up there, and the trick is 1/4 inch drive extensions with a short socket on the end, and you can reach up there and get that top bolt started with your fingers from this direction over here. If this was in anything other than a Cabover, I don't know how you FE guys get that bolt, because I was staring straight at it and I had a rough time getting it. She's in there. We polished up our connections. We got the battery cable connected right there. We're All the same old connections. Got the Optima battery that was on the trickle charger all night long. And we're ready to give it a go and see if our starter repair did anything, if it fixed it, or if we made our Bendix done broken. What do you guys think? Choke? No choke? I'm gonna try it without choke first. We'll see what that gets us. Looking good. We'll give her just a little choke. Come on, baby. Do you see how fast she's spinning over? I mean, that is awesome. And I'm betting that has to do with the repair that we did on the starter. Right now we're gonna do a spark test because something doesn't seem right. We weren't getting really any bumps out of it. This could be a problem here. We're gonna have to dry that off a little bit. Not that any exhaust comes out of there, but I don't know. Fuel dripping on a muffler, just a little concerning. Who put this fuel tank here anyways? Drained all the old crappy gas out of the auxiliary gas tank, filled it up with a small amount of chainsaw gas that we had, so it's gonna run a little bit different because it's got a little bit of oil in it. Shouldn't hurt the engine. Gave her a little bump. Let's see if we can't get this old girl started and moving to the end of the driveway to turn her around. Come on, baby. Time out. I'm gonna try to get more gas real quick before the sun goes down. Whoa, we finally got it moved. We set out what we originally intended to do, but we didn't get to work on what we originally intended. That's going to be coming up in some future episodes. We did address the starter. The starter needed rebuilt. It was turning over way too slow. Now she just spools right up and takes off. Obviously, if you didn't guess it by now, bad fuel was the issue. We need to get that auxiliary fuel tank off of there, get the original fuel tank cleaned out, and or a replacement fuel tank that's the right size and one that keeps rainwater, moisture, and other crap out of the fuel. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Leave your questions and comments in that section below, and don't forget to punch that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching, everybody. Oh baby, back in business. Rebuilt the starter, had no idea what I was doing. She's back together and just dials up like a champ. I couldn't be happier with that. Thanks for watching, everyone.